give you a sense of who we are. So, welcome. I'm the CEO of the Positive Education Consortium. So glad that you're here. And, highlighting for you, this is the third conversation we've had of a six conversation series. And this one is all about creativity, about how we can creatively establish balance. And last conversation, which was just a couple of weeks ago, was with Ridley College, which is a positive education school in the Niagara region of Southern Ontario. And it was really special because we had some leadership join us from Ridley College, and we also had students on the line from elementary, middle, and upper school. And the most consistent thread that we heard from these students about how they feel that they're thriving at their very special school was this sense of being seen and known by their teachers. And they shared some really amazing stories about how that unfolded in their lives. And if you weren't with us, no worries, because we recorded it, just like we're recording today. So we can pop the link into the chat so that you can save that to go and watch it. Um, our conversation that just happened with Ridley College, and then we had another amazing conversation, which was led by Sandy and her compatriot at Russell Sage College. She was the one who kicked off the party, and Amelia from the Flourishing Center was also there. So that was a really juicy conversation as well. So we've had some great stuff that's already happened. And we would love for you, we've got three more conversations to come. So please stay engaged with us to continue on this juicy journey of how we are learning and supporting each other. So with that transition, I'd love to pass the baton to Carol and Chandra because today they're going to talk about how we can restore our energy, deepen our practice, and support one another in creating spaces where both educators and students can truly flourish. And before I pass the baton to Carol, I'll just share a quick story that what's really fun about the Carol Laura connection is Carol met me in my yoga class. So a lot of us met at something called the World Positive Education Accelerator, a conference in Dallas. We were all sweating together in the middle of the summer back in 2018. Carol is truly unique in so many ways, including how she found us. She found us through yoga. And here she is with Chandra. So, Carol, welcome and thank you so much for sharing your light and your gift with us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laura. And yes, finding each other and who is interested in positive psychology and positive education is a journey. So anyone on this call is special because we find each other with that light. And I found Chandra. So I invited Chandra to this conversation for many reasons. First, full disclosure, we are not experts in maintaining our balance. In fact, Chandra and I have been stressed out as much as all of you. But what we will do today is share the creative and unique intentional ways that we have practiced and that we try to keep in our day. But part of preparing for this made us both aware of what we need to do more of. So, full disclosure. Chandra, do you remember how you and I met?
Of course I do, Carol.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I don't even remember what year of education I was in, but I was looking for a self-care course, teacher self-care course, as a matter of fact. And I signed up for your teacher self-care course. And I know that you always assign a coach to everyone. And I don't know what happened, but I got lucky and you were my coach.
We ran out of coaches. So, what happened for the audience, the listening audience, and the recorded audience? I want to kind of give us a context for how we find ourselves talking about maintaining our balance and stress and all of this. So I created that course because I work with mentoring. So my background is I'm a former teacher, I'm a mentor trainer, I worked at a university, and then I started my own company to help people, help teachers be more prepared to have a mentoring conversation that actually got to the place that Laura's talking about, having students that can say, my teacher knows who I am. So that was the background. And what I kept hearing is the mentors kept saying, we can't even have a conversation because the teacher's so stressed out. It's like they're bringing their stress to our mentoring meetings. We're trying to talk about content, but we called it self-care in those years, the early years. And I'm not against self-care, the manicure, pedicure, whatever we want to do, as Chandra and I talked about, we are going to do that. But I'm talking more about well-being and the positive psychology for a more sustainable. So this self-care course started, and Chandra, you signed up. So why did you sign up?
Mhm.
Why did you sign up? What's your entry into this conversation?
I mean, my entry into the conversation is that, I'm a longtime educator and I, for a really long time, was debating whether I could continue in the field of education because I was burning out, right? Burned out as a teacher, burned out as an administrator, burned out as an instructional coach, and then burned out as a new teacher developer, what we called them in my district, or a mentor, right? Because you're exactly right, Carol. So every time we sat down with teachers, they were pouring themselves, pouring themselves out, right? And or venting, and they needed a space to do that. And I appreciate being able to hold that space. And when you're working with so many teachers and you're seeing this happen collectively across schools across the district, you realize it's a problem. And as a mentor, you absolutely also absorb a lot of that energy, right? And so it becomes really hard for you too to maintain your well-being and your balance because it is completely overwhelming. And that's why I ended up seeking out your course because I had to do something and I
Right.
had to do
And
something
then
different.
we became fast friends. And Chandra, you have your own well-being podcast. Say a little bit about your background to kind of just put the context into the conversation for where we're getting these ideas and why we're even bothering to
Yeah.
have the conversation.
Sure, yeah. So I spent many, many years in K to 12 education, as like I said before, as a teacher and administrator. And actually about year 10 into teaching, I came a fork. And it was, am I going to be able to continue to do this work that I love and to be able to sustain myself at the same time? Because I was really, really doubting that I was going to actually be able to do that. That's actually how I got introduced to Parker Palmer's work and with the Center for Courage and Renewal, because I ended up going to a retreat, right? A seasonal set of retreats. And when I sat there with teachers from every walk of life, from every type of school, parochial and rural and urban and, private and public, and we were all experiencing the exact same thing. The exact same sense of burnout. And there were people there from, like 5 years of teaching through 30. And everyone was just, this is not sustainable. Like, we can't keep doing this. This is just too much. I don't know if I can. So, first of all, finding your community, how important that is. I was like, oh my goodness, I am not alone. This is a problem across our profession. This is not a Chandra problem. This is a
Right,
much kind of bigger problem.
right,
And from there, I really committed to going, well, I need to figure this out for myself. And I want to be able to figure this out for my colleagues as well. Right.
right.
And so that's when I started my journey with the Center for Courage and Renewal, taking as many self-care classes as I possibly could to kind of figure it out, really diving into well-being and trying to find practices and routines that actually make sense. It's also when I started moving from this idea of a work-life balance to work-life integration, right?
Right, right,
um, because work and your life should not actually be in balance. Work is a part
right.
of your life. It should not be balanced with all of the other
Right.
things in your life, right? And I have been very guilty of making that mistake, right? And so that work just became this huge part, right? As an educator, but it is your identity in so many different ways, right? It completely takes over. But what does that mean for all the rest of you, all the other parts of you?
Right, right. So the other thing that was happening as we both talk about this topic, and we're going to dive into some specifics, is that the school districts were doing SEL, social emotional learning, for the students.
Mhm.
And what was happening is the teachers were getting burned out by delivering the content of SEL to the students. And that's when that was the beginning of the self-care course that I designed. I wasn't calling it well-being at that time. It's transitioned. And there are different organizations that do adult SEL, Castle and others. But I think we want to kind of underscore what you're saying, Chandra, is if we have happy, healthy teachers, we'll have happy, healthy students. But for whatever reason, self-care and that course didn't take off because it wasn't required. It's like districts weren't behind
Mhm.
that they didn't connect the dots so that would make a happier school culture so that the teachers could actually deliver the instruction. So we're here, we still are. I mean, this started a decade ago, and we're pivoting, as you say, in different ways. Now, Chandra, right now you are a facilitator for Parker Palmer's Center. Congratulations.
Thank you. I am. Yes, I went through the training,
Yes.
became a facilitator, and I love this work. And I know that this work is life-giving for me as a person and as a professional. And I really believe it could change the face of education. Like I firmly really
Right.
believe that it truly can.
So how we're organizing this conversation is Chandra is going to share three of the touchstones from Parker Palmer's work. We're just going to use those to organize our ideas. And I'm going to give you some strategies, and she is as well. And after each touchstone, we'll let you write in the chat if you have a question or if you have an idea that relates to that touchstone. And we do have a door prize at the end. So one of you will win a copy of my Mindful Living Journal. And we do have a list of resources. So stay to the end. You'll get a whole list of the Center for Courage and Renewal, uh, retreats that Chandra is organizing, all kinds of goodies. So let's get started. What is a touchstone, Chandra? And give us the first one that you've chosen for us to kind of organize our thoughts around.
Yep. So the touchstones in the courage and renewal work are essentially ways of being together, right? So in other spaces, you might call them agreements or norms, but these are kind of ways of being in courage spaces. And the idea is that these touchstones are a practice, like everything else, right? It's not like a one and done. It really is a practice. So here's a perfect example. The concept that everyone has an inner teacher, right? And it's called by many names by many people. But that true source of who you are, right? Deep inside of you, right? Some call it being, some call it soul, some call it an inner teacher, inner wisdom. Um, and so this first touchstone I'm really talking about is listening to your inner teacher. Um, as a child, we all know that children pretty much roll as they feel. They're very connected to who they are, right? It's really, really clear. As we get older, right, we get further and further away from who we are. And some of this, comes from, society tells us X, Y, and Z. Some of it comes from schools, all sorts of different places. Until at some point, you cannot even hear, actually, your own self. You don't even know who you are. You become so divided, right? As Parker talks, from the essence of who you truly are, right? You're going through life, you're kind of doing things. And so this idea of listening to your inner teacher is getting quiet enough to be able to truly quiet the noise in your head and around you and listen to your heart and your head. And what is it telling you? And learning to trust again, because many of us have lost that, to trust again the who that you are.
Thank you for saying that. Now, I believe in that and maybe have come to that touchstone in different ways. And I've actually attended a retreat with Parker Palmer and with you, Chandra, where you really focus on that being still enough to hear it. And I've had, when I've done this in my circles of light, sometimes teachers will say, but how do I know that it's the right voice? Like I'm listening, but how would I know? And a mentor said to me when I asked that question on behalf of others, he said, "You'll know if it's the right voice, if it's kind and loving. If it's critical and judgmental, it's not the voice of your inner teacher." And it stayed with me forever because sometimes when I'm listening, it's a critical listening. It's like, get that done, or what isn't working, and things like that. And even for mentoring, how I came to all this work really was for mentors complaining that they couldn't do their mentoring and then they were burned out, was they didn't know how to reframe to get the novices to listen to their inner teacher too, because they're always listening to the mentor. But what I like about the program that I was able to develop was a collaborative conversation, not the directing from a mentor. So that inner voice of the novice becomes really important, but they have to hear it not as critical. And that's huge shift. So I'll say to the group as one of the strategies, if you're partnering with someone, instead of saying, how can I help? Or what's not working for you? What's your problem? We could say, what's working? Tell me what's working in your classroom. And just leading with that question allows us to do the touchstone, listen to the inner teacher, but it's from the what's working. It's from the affirmation. And it's so simple and creative, but it works. And when I have done those in the mentoring conversation, is silence usually, because the novice doesn't know how to answer the question, because the brain doesn't go there first. It's like, what can I fix? How can I be a better teacher? Oh my God, I'm leaving. I'm terrible. I'm burned out. So our entry to the conversation is, yes, through our burnout, but it's also through this mentoring. How do we show up with other people, and how do we control the conversation? What do you think of that idea, Chandra?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, right? I think that this collaborative atmosphere you're talking about is the trustworthy space that we create, right, between mentors and mentee. And we have to learn to trust the mentee, and the mentee has to learn to trust themselves.
Yes,
And we have to model that,
yes,
right? And so I love your reframing of, what's working. And I would add to that to get out of here and to
yes.
get into here,
Okay. Because
right? Like,
you feel what's working. You can
well, you
actually
you
feel what's
know, you
working. Right,
know, right? But all
right.
the criticism is here, and some of
Okay.
it is the criticism that you've put on yourself. A lot of it is the criticism that's coming from out here in, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
it's not helpful. It's
yes,
not helpful, right?
right.
What's going on here? What is
Yeah,
working? How can you build on what is working? Yes, there are other things that we have to work on, but how do you also build on what's
right.
working? Right?
So
How do we
that's a
stay
strategy for
positive?
us. Like we can even say it to ourselves after this conversation. Okay, what's working in my life? It can go beyond mentoring. I want to share. So, another creative strategy that I want to introduce that relates to this touchstone is poetry. So, I love poetry. Laura reads poetry in her yoga classes, which are on Insight Timer. Find her, they're so awesome. And there is a book by Kim Rosen called Saved by a Poem. I think that's the title. So we want to talk about some other strategies for finding balance in this listening touchstone. So this book that I'm going to share is Self-Love Poetry for Thinkers and Feelers. Just what you're talking about, Chandra. And the author is Melody Godfred, and it's not on. So she has organized her poems. The left side is a thinker poem, and the right side, same message for a feeler. But I'm going to introduce the left brain. So this is the poem. The feeling you get when you start listening to your inner voice instead of shushing it.
There you go.
There it is. So we have to know which inner voice it is, heart, right? So poetry, I would like to introduce as a creative strategy. The other one I'd like to introduce relates to my yoga teacher training, and these are mudras for your hands. So one way to be able to listen physically, if you have a very active mind, is to use these gestures, and there's hundreds of them, hand mudras, and I have videos of them in the resources that you can see me. They take 1 minute. But here's the thing. It's breaking the cycle from the head to the heart doesn't take that long. So the book that I just finished is called, I don't know if you've read this, Laura, The Power of the Pause by Jillian Pransky. And her whole book is, it only takes 90 seconds. So when we all say, I don't have time for self-care, there's no time, I can't go to the, retreat for 5 hours. No, you only need 90 seconds. But what we said in the description, it's intentional. Like it has to be, I want to break the cycle that I'm in right now. And I'm intentionally going to do it. So this hand mudra will do it. So there's hundreds of them, like Hakini Mudra, Vajra Mudra, Surrender Mudra, but let's do the stillness because it relates to this touchstone. So if you're driving, Kim, don't do this because we have people that are listening in. So tuck your thumbs into the palms of your hands and wrap your fingers around like a little blanket. Uncross your arms and legs. And just lay your palms and your little fists here on your thighs and just sit for a moment. I want you to inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and drop your shoulders. Let's do that again. Inhale and exhale. As you're sitting quietly in stillness, I'd like you to listen to your heartfelt inner voice and let one of your strengths emerge. Yes, the strength that just came up that you're pushing down and shushing. What is a strength that you as a human being brought in with you? And just identify that strength and thank yourself for it. Like, oh, wow. I'm so glad that's easy for me. Strengths are usually like the easy thing that you're able to do. And then just release the mudra. It was like a minute less. If you feel like you want to share your strength in the chat, type it in. My strength that's easy for me is enthusiasm. It's just like, okay, this is not that hard. This is just who I am. So I would type enthusiasm in and just say, okay, but what was yours? Like, what comes easy for you? It's a good way to find our balance when we take the thought away from the thing that's hard to do and actually focus on what might be easy to do. So, so those are some ideas around touchstone one. Um, let's take some chat time. Question in the chat about listening to you. How do you listen to your inner voice? You might be like, oh, we already have been doing this forever. Like, how do you listen? Or what idea would you even try that Chandra and I just talked about? Um, Type it in, and Sandy and Laura are kind of looking over the chat. See if we got some strength, see if we got some ideas for listening to our inner voice. What's
We
going on
do.
with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
We definitely do. So
Okay.
Lori zeroed in on something that feels really relevant. She talked about how our brains are naturally wired for negativity bias, right?
Yes.
So Carol, to your point, when we train ourselves, to take this appreciative inquiry, what is working, that strengths-based focus, to Lori's point, it doesn't necessarily come naturally. It's a practice.
Right.
It's a
It's a
practice,
practice.
but
Yeah.
really powerful for us to model with our students and just,
Yeah.
dialing in. And I think the thing that's really powerful that you and Chandra have both zeroed in on is we can go out and we can get the massages, we can get the pedicures, and that makes us feel good in the moment, but it
Right.
doesn't necessarily keep our cup filled.
Right.
So
It's not
this kind of
sustainable.
a
Yes.
shift, it's
Yes.
much more sustainable. And that goes to, like Chandra was like, I was on edge. I mean, I was not keeping my cup filled
Right.
until I plugged into this other way of nourishing myself.
Mm.
Right. I love
Mm.
that. Anything in the chat? Any questions that we need to address now? Or we're going to go to touchstone two from Parker Palmer's work.
Yeah, we've got a lot of strengths coming in. Does
We
anyone
got a
have any
Oh,
lot of
say some
questions?
of
strengths
the
coming in.
strengths. I
Yeah.
want to hear some strengths. What do we got?
Oh, we got a lot of curiosity. We've got patience.
Ah,
People are seeing you as
yes.
zesty. Yeah.
Yes.
You want to go in, Sandy? Anything you got to
Yes.
share?
What do you see?
I see patience and curiosity, love of learning. My goodness, this is awesome.
All
So,
right. So,
uh,
so just we're creating the space within our space. Heidi, do you want to
yeah.
add in? Heidi.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in. I mean, I've done a lot, I'm also a yoga teacher, done a lot of breathing, but I haven't really incorporated the mudras. And that felt really nice. So I guess this is learning for me. Uh,
Yay.
I teach mostly kids yoga where we do hand gestures with our breath, but I've
Right.
never really done it with adults. So I just wanted to
And
say
the kids will like this too. You
they
can,
will. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Felt it had an
yeah.
interesting feel, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Heidi. And the thing about the mudras, um, Lillian Page, I use that book, and they have a physical reaction. So the one that I did with stillness is not nothing. It's stillness. But surrender might be a higher energy. So you have a lot to be curious about and learn. And I have 10 videos that you can watch. So, yay. So touchstone two, Chandra, what?
Oh, may I interrupt real quick?
Yes, please.
I'd love to point out that Nora shared with us that she's a student in the middle of finals week, and that exercise was very helpful for her.
Yay,
Yes,
doing it. Do it.
awesome.
Yes, Nora. And
That's
you're gonna
awesome.
love the other ones too. So touchstone two, how are you framing our next activities, Chandra?
Yeah, so very connected with stillness, right? So being as present as possible for yourself and others, right? So staying in the present, right? There's so many times that we are so far ahead of ourselves, or we are just contemplating all the things that we did wrong. Oh my goodness, this day. Oh my goodness, this week. Oh my goodness, this whole semester. Oh, right. And so, what does it mean to be in the present, right? Because this is what we have. Be in the present for yourself, right? Be very aware of who you are, where you are in this space. Absolutely. And when you're engaging with others, be there for them, be present with them. Try not to let your mind go so far to the left, to the right, or ahead, but right here, right? Because then you can deeply listen to what another person is saying and actually engage. And if it's with yourself, you can actually deeply listen to yourself and hear your inner teacher,
Right.
but only if you're being as present as possible.
Yes, I love that. So the way in which Chandra and I have been making that action happen is Parker Palmer calls it a trust circle, and I call it a circle of light for the teachers. And I use my Teaching with Light book as the curriculum and use stories, teacher stories, to help people be present to each other. So part of the being present when I go into a school or if I did it on a Zoom meeting is we would sit in a circle, literally, with nothing in the middle. So just being physically not having a barrier in front of any of us helps us to find that presence. So, how we sit, the feng shui, if you will, of the setup of any workshop matters. When there are desks in between, when it's just taken as delivery to your head, it isn't being present. For me, that's what I've learned from the teachers. So when we sit in a circle of light and people speak, they're present because there isn't any place else to go. And then if the question is one of their stories, and we use a number of different things that I've been using, be the wave, face the sun, and the shadows will fall behind you. Be a ripple, follow your heart. And I would pick one of those mantras, if you will, and then just say, what does that mean to you? And then they just listen to what it means to them. And it helps that presence and listening. But part of what I'm learning through this is, what does it look like when someone listens to you? It's like, I know what it looks like when they're not listening to me. Maybe it's my husband sometime, but I'm not going to tell him that. But I can tell what's going on. And what is it? So, what are we striving for? So, an example of when I learned that presence from going to Parker's retreat and learning these touchstones, and this is one I did it once. I was working at the university, busy, busy, busy. Students are coming in, the phone's ringing, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the phone rang when I was having a present conversation, a serious conversation with a student, and I didn't pick it up. And I remember the student saying, "Oh, you have a phone call. Did you want to get that?" And I said, "No, I'm with you right now." And I remember the reaction on the student's face. That student taught me how important it was that I didn't pick up the phone. Like, I didn't realize. And now it's 10 times worse with our phones everywhere, because there are calendars, there are timers, there everything. So the question in the chat, I think, for this touchstone will be, what do you do to stay present? So when I'm doing the workshops, I'm consciously thinking of this touchstone. How can I create it so the teachers will be present for each other? So type in if there's something that is resonating with you about this touchstone, the importance of it or the lack of it. How can we, in this curious, creative conversation, help each other to be more present or to strive for it more in our lives? So if anything shows up there, I'll have Sandy or Laura show us. But the other thing about being present to others, I want to give a little shout out to my book, Be a Legacy Teacher, because I said I would introduce it in this call. So here's the thing about legacy. We are often not present to the most experienced teachers in our schools. We push them out. We want two for the price of one, would be the budget person. Everybody sees legacy in a very different way. And when I was writing this book, I really, because I am a legacy teacher, I've been formally retired for 10 years. I have my own company because I chose to do things that I enjoy. But I heard this on a podcast yesterday, I think. The difference between knowledge and wisdom is experience. So for some reason, the experience gets shut out of our educational maintaining balance conversations somehow. So we're not listening. And when I saw the quote of John Dewey, who said in the 1920s, the saddest thing about US education is we lose the wisdom of our most successful teachers when they retire. I saw that quote 5 years ago. It took me 5 years to write this book because I am adamant that this touchstone two about listening has to include our wisest people somehow. And this isn't everybody. We know everybody doesn't want to move on and be a legacy. They want to, I'm done. I burned out, right? But Chandra, what do you think about that as fitting in with this touchstone? What's your take on this?
Yeah. And so when I think about being present and I think about a mentor relationship, and often our mentors are some of our most experienced people. And yeah, we need to listen to them deeply. We need to learn from them professionally and personally. Like they've got a wealth of wisdom across the board, right? They have sustained themselves in this
Yeah,
work. Well, how have they done that? And those are not often conversations that are happening, but those conversations need to happen. We need to make room in our mentoring conversations for much more than kind of just the skills and the performance. All right.
yes,
We've got to really talk about the beings and human being, right? That relationship is
yes,
critical.
yeah,
And we do that by listening to one another and by asking questions of one another, like real questions, and really listening, and carving out the time to do so is critical. Not like fly by night, catch
right.
me but really carving out that time that says, you know what, you're important to me.
Yes,
Mhm.
and making it visible. It's like our most
Mhm.
experienced teachers are invisible. They're the late career teachers, and you don't have to be retired. You could be in your 3 years out, 5 years out. It's an
Mhm.
asset for the district if we make it visible and we include in our circles of light this wisdom, and we have to figure it out. I don't know how to do it either. I mean, I
Well,
have some suggestions, but
yeah. And just to chime in, because I feel a synthesis between our last conversation, which talked about how much the students welcomed and
yeah,
appreciated being heard and seen and known by the teachers. And when
yeah,
we really, it feels like there's a match possibly made in heaven here, where, if we remind the teachers or really have the teachers plug into that sense of connection and, knowing your students feel more connected to you. And I think that that will help them feel like the teachers feel like their work matters more. Because I think, Chandra, what I'm hearing from you and what I've witnessed from others is there can be a disconnect because teachers are often so purposeful, but then they get into this place where they're looking out into the sea of faces who maybe aren't engaging with the material. And y'all are like, why am I spending my time this way?
mhm.
Right. So how do we help, create that point of connection again?
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, and I feel like there's opportunity here, but as
right,
you said, Chandra, there needs to be space and there needs to be time. And
right,
teachers are so overwhelmed. Their plates are so full. So I know that this isn't an easy fix, but it does feel like there's rich ground for connection.
right.
Yeah.
And that's why the 90-second pause and the mudras for us, so that we have the energy to introduce these concepts, because you can't create a legacy teacher network in your district unless you're coming from a place of believing that that is really an important and valuable way to communicate and have value. We know it'll raise the morale in the school. We know it'll connect people. The authenticity of a circle of light, any meeting that I've ever run with that workshop, the way teachers leave the room, and Chandra, we've done them online actually, is different than the way they came in because of what you said, Laura, the purposefulness. So touchstone three. This is our third one. There's more, but we're only giving you three today. What is the touchstone? And I'd like to introduce some strategies.
Yeah. So here's a great one for educators, right? So when the going gets rough, turn to wonder,
Ah,
right? Not judgment and criticism. Turn to wonder, turn to curiosity, right? Lean into the why does this feel hard to me? Or what is this bringing up in me and why? Right? Or why is this? I'm curious as to why this person is behaving in the way that they are behaving. Right? So, really leaning into wonder when things get rough, because they do.
Yes, they do. So for me, when I first heard that touchstone, I thought of awe as well and curiosity. And my examples that I wanted to introduce into this conversation related to forest bathing. So does anybody know what forest bathing is? Who in the group? I know Laura and Sandy because they've heard, and Amika a little bit. So I was introduced to forest bathing maybe 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago at a yoga retreat, of course. And I had never heard of it. And the person who shared it with me um, suggested that I read a book by Dr. Ching Lee from Japan, who is the person that coined the phrase in the 1970s. And I was like, why have I never heard of this? Now it's a little more popular now. If you just Google it, you'll find articles and all kinds of things. I I little I kind of got obsessed with the idea. So I read a lot of the books and then I started leading walks in the woods. And I live on Cape Cod, and then I'm in Florida in the winter with nature. So the idea that I'm introducing here for a way to maintain our balance creatively is to get outside. So does it have to be a full forest bath for 3 hours? And what is a forest bath? No, you do not have to take your clothes off in the woods. Just so you know. It is an immersion of all of your senses on a walk. So it's not exercise. So, Nora, you're getting ready for your finals. You're going to find a park and you could just sit there and do your mudra because there is a physical benefit from the trees. Some people would say it's allergies, but it there are phytoncides. So if you're curious about forest bathing, I have an article and a video of me leading a forest bathing um, in the notes at the end and the resources. So I think nature therapy is the best massage you could get. And I learn it, but here's the thing, Chandra, we have to do it. We have to get off the computer, right? And it's amazing how just opening the door and looking outside could make a difference. So anybody in the chat that's tried forest bathing, what's your relationship with nature? I guess is the question for the chat. Do you love going? Where is it, the forest or the beach? It can be, I'm broadening it. I mean, I'm talking about forest bathing, but you can go to the beach. Chandra, what do you think about these crazy ideas?
It's not crazy at all. Nature has healing properties. Like there's no question about that whatsoever. Absolutely has healing properties. And so, and wonder is found all around you, right? And so I love that
Right.
connection to nature. I tell this story often of how I walked down my driveway and I saw these beautiful purple flowers for the first time. And I ran inside to tell my children, oh my goodness, these amazing flowers have bloomed. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, these purple flowers in the driveway. And they're like, Mom, every single year, they've been here forever. And when I tell you, I've lived in this house for 30 years, 30 years, clearly have walked past these flowers right? Like, oh my goodness. So talk about what does it mean to stay present, right? And notice what is going around you. And just to find wonder and awe in the simplest of things, this purple flower, like it just made me
Right.
so happy. And now I look for them every single year. But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it is so easy to go through this life so quickly and not look at all the amazing pieces of life
Right.
that are
Right.
there, and we miss them moving at a million miles an hour. Slow down.
Yeah. Thank
Slow
you.
down.
Mhm.
So the other strategy is music. So I had the privilege of going to a symphony concert here in Florida the other night, and the maestro, he actually leads everything without sheet music. He is such a genius. He doesn't, you know how usually you see the maestro all in his head through his feeling. The orchestra was fabulous, and it's like a sound bath with finding the music that resonates with you. So when I mentioned it to somebody like the symphony, oh man, I would never go to the symphony. And it was so interesting that this friend of mine just like, oh, you're not going to find me there. But he'd be at an Eagles concert or whatever. So it's the music that resonates with you or the sound bath bowls. Start looking for things that physically kind of jar the body and the awe of our bodies, minds, and spirits together. So yeah, thank you for those three touchstones, Chandra. They really help to frame the specific ideas. And we have a closing message that I'd like you to kind of relate to us. And is there anything in the chat before that people have brought up around the third touchstone that we should put into the space?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Amika was saying that, neighborhood gardens, a local stream, hearing sparrows in a bush. I mean, just how pervasive it is, right? I mean, like Chandra's story, it was right there, but if you just walk
Right.
by, if you don't dial in, I mean, beauty is all
Yes.
around us. Sandy says, stop and smell the roses.
Yay.
That was an old Mac Davis song. I don't know if anyone knows.
Okay, back to the music.
Yeah,
I love
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
Anita was talking about how getting out into the woods with her granddaughter, who's the
Oh,
cutest in the world. And after
Yeah,
only a few
sweet.
moments, they're in sync. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing?
yeah, being in
Right?
sync
Yeah.
together.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
three touchstones make a difference. They Let's circle back the title of our creative strategies to maintain our balance in a constantly changing world. So we wanted to be creative. We wanted to share things that we actually did. We didn't want to speak from research. So these, and we're not experts, but Chandra, what's our closing message from you? You have three things you want us to remember.
Yes. So all of this is wonderful, and everything that you do is wonderful. The key word is you. Like you have to take control of it, right? I know so often we're waiting for, I don't know, maybe our school leaders or the district leaders to come up with the program or to give us the time, or it's going to be us. It's going to be each person individually and then all of us collectively doing it for one another. Like it's not going to come from top down. And so, we have to take control of our own well-being, period. We control it. We get to do
Right,
that.
we do. So that is the music of Sweet Honey in the Rock, which you will get a YouTube, because the message from this group, if you don't know who they are, is we are the ones. And until we get that we are the ones, we'll be waiting for a long time to have somebody else help us maintain our balance.
Mhm.
What else do you have for us,
Exactly.
Sandra?
Yeah. So the second thought that I have is that, what well-being looks like is going to be different for everyone, and that's fine, right? And
Right.
yes, it might be forest bathing, it might be mudra, it might be a walk, it might be sitting quietly. It could take a minute, it could be a half a day, right? Like, and everything in between. It doesn't have to be prescribed. And so, like, don't wait until you have oh, once I have I don't know, half a day, then I'm
Yeah,
going to plan something elaborate. What does it mean? What could you plan every single day? Could you just find a quiet 5 minutes? Right? In school, sometimes I literally just, on my break, walk outside and just walk around the block. Could I do that? When it was really cold outside, I would walk the building. People like, you're walking the building? Yep, I am walking the building, right? It gives me an opportunity to connect with the community, and it gets my mind out of the constant racing of everything that's happening in my head, right? and gets me into my physical body. So there's all sorts of things that you can do, and you can choose whatever you want. The key is to choose something and then to do it, and to do it consistently.
Mm.
And what if we don't do it? What's your, you know?
Listen,
What you had a tip for me. What did you say?
if you don't schedule it in, it doesn't
Right.
exist.
It has
Mhm.
to be a meeting with yourself.
Has to
It
be.
has to go in the calendar.
Yeah.
Meeting.
You got to prioritize yourself. You prioritize everything and everyone else.
Right.
So you have to
Right.
prioritize yourself. And I know it might even sound silly, but what does it mean to put an alarm on your phone, right? For 10 minutes. Okay, at 5 o'clock, this is what I'm doing. At 3 o'clock, this is what I'm doing. Right.
Right.
And there might be days that you might not hit that, but I guarantee you, if you don't schedule it in, you definitely won't hit it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's true. So what I'd like to do now is pull the door prize. So Sandy is going to say who is the winner, and because it kind of relates to, so the prize is a mindful living journal that I created and put up on Amazon. It's called Art and Affirmations to Nourish Your Soul. So part of taking care of ourselves is nourishing ourselves. And I love journaling. I'm a writer. It's just something that I enjoy. But this has some podcasts that go with it, and it's monthly. So if you can't do it every day, you'd have a once a month journal question. So this month is, where are we? April. So I'll just read from the book. The mantra for April from this journal is I am emerging in new and healthy ways. Perfect for this conversation. And then I have a little piece of artwork there. So for me, art is another balance place. It's like we just need to listen. Like, what voice is telling us we know how to do? Just ask yourself, what would be the best way for me to take care of myself? Answer that question in your journal. So who won, Sandy?
Okay. Oh, Heidi Kaufman.
Heidi!
Congratulations.
All right,
Woo!
so Heidi, just email me at Mentoring in Action with your home address and I'll have it sent to you.
I
All
just
right?
put it in the chat for you, Heidi.
So yeah, just
Congratulations.
yeah, we've been talking. So Heidi, you have the last word. So what was the session like for you? You can't just win a door prize and not say anything. So that's the way it goes. That's how I get you. All
Gonna
right.
put you on the spot, Heidi.
Yeah. So
I
let's.
loved so much of what you did. Yeah, I loved the mudras that we talked about. The second one was being present. And that was a good question to think about. What do I do? And I think it comes back to the body again, right? I think someone in the chat put eye contact, take a deep,
Yes.
like it
Mhm.
comes back to me tuning into myself to be present for that other person. Um, the nature and the music 100% resonates with me. Those are both interventions that I like to, positive interventions that I use a lot and I like to use with kids. And then the really interesting point, I mean, this is something I've given a lot of thought to. You guys saying, we've got to be our own change, right? We can't wait for school leadership. And working in schools, it's always this push and pull, right? Because it's like I want the leaders to embrace it, and I keep hoping, right, that it's going to be like we find the leaders to make it come top down, sustainable, da 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 da. But yet, you're 100% right. So I think what I'm trying to do is embrace. I mean, some people that who we touch will become leaders, and other people, then you've got the legacy teachers to pass this wisdom on. So I'm trying to hold both of those things. I think that's my last final takeaway is holding. We've got to do it for ourselves, and we also want to try to create it in the leadership. So I'm trying to hold both of those things.
I love that. Thank you, Heidi. I really appreciate that. Great summary.
Yeah.
Anyone else who wants to come off mute and ask a question, or if there's a question in the chat, you can unmute. Nora, are you feeling better now about your finals? You glad you came and took this
Yes.
time? What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's great. So I'm in the library, so I'm not able to be really loud, but yes, but yeah, it was really great to learn all these things, and especially because I'm learning about a lot of these things in my classes as we're finishing up the year, so it's great to hear it in different practices as well, for sure.
Thank you, Nora.
Nice connection for you.
Anyone else, and Lori or anybody in the chat,
Yeah.
want to make sure we get the questions, because then I'm going to just read a final kind of a closing message for us to take away. We good?
I just loved the structure and I mean, I loved everything that you said. But just to kind of point out something a little bit different, I love the structure of the touch points, and, really using those as anchors to kind of ground the conversation. Because I think, what I think that lends itself to is even if we can just walk away with those little sound bites and touch points, that is a start. And then hopefully, because we have that to connect to, we'll be able to even to remember even more of the different pieces of the conversation. So I love the structure.
Thank you, Laurie.
Mm.
Chandra, I want to thank you as always for being my partner in these kinds of conversations. We find each other in the world. So here's my closing message as we wind down. I know Laura has something, but I really think this is important. When the world seems to be filled with darkness, when chaos and confusion have overpowered love and reason, when hope, forgiveness, and balance seem lost, what can we do? Be the hope, be the balance, be the love, forgiveness, kindness, and peace the world most needs now. Go deep within yourself, beyond knowing. Be the light.
Beautiful.
I
Thank
love
you.
that. So Sandy's going to wrap it up. And Sandy, I think you were going to also drop the resources in the chat.
Yes, I have the resources in the chat. If you can't grab them, don't worry about it. It's a document that has everything on it that we talked about and much more. But we will also have that in the follow-up email that we will be sending out. Real quick reminder that all of these recordings are on our website. That's the International Positive Education Consortium. And I'm not going to do a wrap up because Heidi and Lori did a fabulous job of doing a beautiful overview of Chandra and Carol's session here today, which I found very very meaningful. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your knowledge, experience, and the work that you guys are doing. Just beautiful. And I just wanted to say that in our work with positive education, Amelia's work at the Flourishing Center, she always says that in order to flourish, we have to go through a process of 1, self-awareness, 2, self-compassion, and 3, self-care. And I think Laura and Chandra gave us some wonderful, wonderful tips on self-care. A lot of strategies there that we can take with us. And moving forward, our next Become a Changemaker conversation is going to happen on May 21st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And our lead facilitator will be Kimberly Breen. She's on the line here. She's one of our consortium members. And she will be joined with Jeff Bryan, who is the co-founder of the Positivity Project, along with the people from Fruitvale Schools in California, who have incorporated the Positivity Project in their school and their district and have been doing some amazing things with the students out there. So again, that is, it's affecting behavior change, seeing what's strong, using openness to align systems and strengths for a thriving school culture. And that's on May 21st at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you all so much for joining us. This was
Thank you,
really,
everyone.
really
Thank
a lovely
you.
Thank you,
conversation.
Carol. Thank
All
you,
right.
Chandra.
Maintain your
Thank you,
Lovely.
power.
Sandy.
Thank you. Be well, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Very
Bye-bye.
well done. Very well
Thank you.
done.
Very well done.
Bravo.
Yes.
Bravo.
Awesome.